Hello, 5th and 6th graders, coming to you again today with some history, and I hope that you enjoyed last week's videos as we started into a new section on countries of Eastern Europe. Now, let me introduce to you some of the final flashcards for this year. We worked on a lot of countries and capitals, but these are some of the newest ones, and I think in addition to these, we only have about 2 or 3 more, and we will have gone through the whole stack. So here are some that you need to know. This is, now this one here is a little bit different because this flashcard is a bit older, but it's Czechoslovakia, and now they've separated that country into 2 countries, so it's the Czech Republic and Slovakia. But the Czech Republic's capital is Prague, and then Slovakia is Bratislava. The capital of Hungary is Budapest. Now you might be a pest to your mom if you are Hungary, so that might help you a little bit with a tip on that one. Budapest, Hungary. This is the country of Ukraine, and its capital is Kiev. Kiev, Ukraine. This is the large country of Russia with the capital of Moscow. Here is Romania, and its capital is Bucharest. Bucharest, Romania. And then you have Poland, and its capital is Warsaw. Warsaw, Poland. And then the final one is Bulgaria, and its capital is Sofia. Sofia, Bulgaria. So these are some new countries and capitals that you will want to take note of as we continue working on our new chapter. So last week I introduced a song to you, and I won't sing the whole thing today. You can go back and watch the video, but as you know, when we start, we say European Russia, and then we go into Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Warsaw, Poland, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria, Ukraine, Belarus. Now you'll notice there are a few countries here that we didn't hit. They're not tested, but this little piece of land here belongs to Russia. And then down here, of course, you've got Austria. Now that's included with Western Europe and Germany. You see those over here. Down here, there is Croatia, Slovenia, Serbia, Montenegro. So there's a few other little countries in there, but you're just not tested on that. These are the ones that they have pulled out from our curriculum for you to be tested on. So just keep that little chant in your mind and keep reviewing your countries for Eastern Europe. As a quick review, remember the world's largest country is Russia with its capital Moscow. We talked about some of these different locations and those nesting dolls. We talked about how they are descendants of Japheth. The Viking tribe called Rus entered, helping to give the name Russia. 988, Vladimir the Saint introduced Eastern Orthodoxy to this nation. Ivan III was the first true national leader. Ivan IV took the title of Tsar or Emperor, sometimes called Ivan the Terrible. Then we talked about Tsar Nicholas I, and then I read you the story about Tsar Nicholas II and his daughter Anastasia. We talked about how a desire for Russia to expand, political unrest, murder, spiritual darkness, fear, opened the door to this new idea of communism or Marxism because of Karl Marx. Now, in today's reading, which by the way, let me mention this, today you actually don't have reading, you just have some comprehension check work. So I think that the assignment was to reread, and I just didn't feel that was necessary. So you had some reading yesterday, and then today you just have some workbook pages. So this will cover yesterday and kind of today's lessons, our slides will. In 1917, the Russian people started to revolt. They had overthrown the Tsar, and they were hoping to have more of a republic or capitalistic type of government. But it was short-lived because this man came to power. Do you recognize his picture? This is Lenin, Vladimir Nikolai Lenin. And he came to power. His tyranny was pushed by the Bolsheviks or the communists. And he felt that it was necessary to kill entire groups of people or classes of people in order to have this supreme country. Now listen, anytime you hear something like that, you know that behind this philosophy is none other than the devil. I mean, that we are human beings. It is not up to us to decide who lives or who dies. And so that is wicked. And so this man comes to power in 1917. He became the leader of the first communist state in history. Lenin was his name. And he ruled as a tyrant. You can read several different things on page 271 that he did. The government took control of the people's land, of the banks and the major industries. Food and goods were distributed by the government as the government saw fit. And people literally began to starve in Russia. Now, not Lenin or not the upper class, but the common people would have begun to starve. Now, there was a civil war that took place, and our book just mentions it briefly, where you had the white Russians and the red Russians fighting against one another. Think of white as a symbol of purity and red for blood, and so the red Russians would have represented the communists, and they won that civil war. So it wasn't as if the people weren't trying, but they just were not strong enough to stand up and to revolt against this powerful, entangling communist government. Now, by 1921, communism had brought about a complete collapse of the Russian economy. And because people were literally starving to death, Lenin put his country on a bit of a capitalistic system, brought in some ideas of capitalism, but it just simply would not work. The communist leadership under Lenin was worse than being led by the czars. So there were enemies of the state. Human life had no value. It was a sad situation for the country of Russia. Creative people like artists and musicians were instructed to work for the government. Christianity was extremely opposed, and something called propaganda was definitely prominent. This is just simply when the country's government lies to the people, and they spread these lies and making it seem like truth, and they guard what the people would read and what the people would watch. That is called propaganda. All right, so Lenin dies. After Lenin dies, and of course there's the Bolsheviks, you have the Great Purge that comes as a result of this man right here. Do you recognize him? Joseph Stalin. And Joseph Stalin was one of the most brutal rulers of all time. He ruled from 1927 to 1953. Millions of Russians lost their lives underneath what was called the Great Purge. If you opposed him, you were gone. If you tried to do any type of revolting or have any ideas that were opposed to what he thought, he would kill you just as soon as look at you. And in fact, he had one of the men that was kind of a running mate against him, Leon Trotsky, killed. He exiled him, and our book mentions that Leon Trotsky went to Mexico, but Stalin sent a coup out and found him and killed him, murdered him. So they set up, Stalin and his henchmen, I guess we could say, set up what was called the Third International. And this was an organization to try to cause a worldwide revolution to communism. In countries like Cuba, some countries in South and Central America, Eastern Europe, and Asia began to fall to communism. In fact, in the 1950s, the communist ruler of Russia at that time was this man right here. His name was Nikita Khrushchev, and you'll see him holding hands with, this is a young Fidel Castro. Fidel Castro was the communist leader of Cuba, and he ruled for years in Cuba. And they're holding hands and showing this united front. But this man right here, he threatened our country. Nikita Khrushchev, who ruled the Russian people for about 10, 11 years, shouted to Americans in a speech, "We will bury you," threatening that communism would one day take over the United States of America. May God have mercy, and may that never happen to our country. But I hope you pray for our country. Now, this led to changes in the Soviet Union. This communism type of government literally leaves the people hungry without medical supplies, without proper housing. And so because of this, the ruler that came next was a man by the name of Mikhail Gorbachev. And Mikhail Gorbachev came to power, and by this time, some of the Russians, even the soldiers, were beginning to question communism. They had attacked Afghanistan, and there was not success there. Afghanistan, the Afghan people, they fought back. They didn't want communism in their country, and Afghanistan is a small country. And so even the Red Army began to question communism. And so Mikhail Gorbachev comes to the scene, and he introduces an idea. There are two ideas. Now these are Russian words called perestroika and glasnost. And the word perestroika is a Russian word that simply means restructuring. So he wanted to kind of come in and change some things about communism. And then the next word, the Russian word glasnost, means openness. So he was saying, okay, let's think about how we can keep communism but restructure it a little. And let's think about how we can open our trade relations with other countries and try to have a better relationship with other countries. So the Russian people were hopeful with Mikhail Gorbachev coming to power. Now we will continue tomorrow on changes in Eastern Europe. But if nothing else, I hope that this lesson has made you grateful for a country in which we have freedoms. Now, over the last couple of weeks, we have seen that our government can shut down freedoms pretty quickly. So we better be praying for our leaders and our country and our government, that God will have mercy and help America to remain strong and independent and free from types of governments like socialism and communism. We'll continue tomorrow. Have a great day.